There's some pretty interesting things going on with the 2025 Chiefs draft class. And one of those things is that you look at Joshua Simmons and everyone thought, well, that's a top 10 talent, but maybe he fell because of some health issues or questions about that. Omar Norman Lott seems to be the preeminent interior pass rusher in this class as far as specific statistics are concerned, but he probably fell because, he didn't play all that many snaps. Noel Williams was getting quite a bit of hype at one point in the draft process, but, that 40-yard dash wasn't really all that great. Jalen Royals was really looking like a first-round wide receiver for his junior season and part of his senior season, but, well, there was the injury. Sort of universally, there's only one player, Ashton Gelati, that seems to have been overdrafted, but we know how good Brett Veach is with his intel on other organizations and how they value certain players on whom Brett Veach has an eye. So maybe it is that someone was getting ready to pick Ashton Gelati and he just did not get all of the hype. But one of the players that we listed there who did fall in the draft is Jalen Royals. Fell all the way to the fourth round for the Kansas City Chiefs to snatch him up there. And guys, the more I think about this selection, the more I concentrate on what it is Jalen Royals was brought in to do, the more absolutely positive I am that he is going to exceed his draft position. Now, I don't normally script things out, but I wanted to get these next few words pretty precise to what I was thinking. The most important thing to know about the strategy going into this season seems to be everything that went wrong last season. And that's a good thing because the Chiefs went to the Super Bowl last season. They were one game short of winning everything, that one game being the Super Bowl itself. One of the things that went wrong was that Hollywood Brown was supposed to return the Chiefs to the high-flying days. And then Hollywood was lost for the season. Rashee Rice was supposed to be the wide receiver number one and a big-time possession guy, and he was, leading the NFL in a lot of important receiving statistics until he was lost for the season. Well, guess what? Jalen Royals is a fast guy who can catch the long ball like Hollywood Brown. But he's often compared to Rashee Rice because he's a big, strong guy and he can do the line of scrimmage work as well. Meaning that should injuries pop up again because both Hollywood Brown and Rashee Rice are returned to the Chiefs this season, Royals can fill in any of those game plan needs. Now, here are Jalen Royals' statistics for college. You can go all the way to his sophomore season, and he's getting blanked. Once 2023 and his junior year comes around, all of a sudden he is catching 71 passes for 1,080 yards, a 15.2 yard average, and 15 touchdowns. An absolutely incredible season, 15 touchdowns. So one of the things that is, I wish one of these advanced metric companies, advanced metric websites would come up with was, look, when you score a touchdown, that's all there is to run. Maybe you score a 30-yard touchdown, but there was no one within 10 yards of you. You would have taken that 80 yards. You would have taken it 95 yards. You would have taken it 137 yards if the football field was that long. So the touchdown statistic in comparison to the yards statistic is oftentimes a little bit misleading. How big would those numbers have been had Jalen Royals not had the end zone itself to stop him? Also, It is worth noting that his senior year, 7 games, right? So preempted by an injury. 55 receptions, 834 yards, 15.2 yard average, the exact same average, and 6 touchdowns in that season. Worth noting that had he played that entire season, he was on pace to have 1,548 receiving yards. Now, as impressive as his junior season was, all of the things that he put on tape between then and the first 7 games of his senior year, had he hit 1,500 yards during that 2024 season, there is no doubt in my mind he would not have been a 4th-round pick. He would have been selected much higher in the draft. So leading into the draft, he was pretty universally considered a 2nd-round pick. And there were fringe drafts here and there where people were asking the question, could Jalen Royals go in the 1st round? And a lot of the sort of thought process behind that was, if anyone knew Rashee Rice was going to have Rashee Rice's rookie season, if anyone knew that Rashee Rice was going to have the first few games of his sophomore campaign, he might have been a 1st-round pick. And Jalen Royals reminded a lot of people of Rashee Rice. Now, this is Mahomes' career, and we're going to look at a couple stats here, and I'm going to be honest with you. I almost overthought this. I looked at a lot of the advanced metrics. I looked at a lot of the sort of niche statistics, a lot of the statistics that are just 5 random letters, not anything that you would know off the top of your head because it's so rarely mentioned, right? But the more and more I dug into those statistics, the more I realized that they all kind of talk about the exact same thing that you can see in the macro statistics here. So there's no better way to illustrate the fact that Mahomes had the fewest passing yards of his career, the fewest passing touchdowns of his career. Now, it was a tie with 2020 or 2019, but still it's the fewest number, and still won the most games of his career. Fewest passing yards, fewest passing touchdowns, most wins. How many games would Patrick Mahomes have won last year if there was someone to step up into the Rashee Rice role for the Chiefs last year? They didn't have that. Justin Watson? There were games, we looked at a game a couple weeks ago, Justin Watson had like 60 snaps and 0 targets. That's not someone sufficiently filling the Rashee Rice role. That's someone standing in the X spot on the field. Mahomes won 15 games last season. 15. It is worth asking. It really is worth asking. Had last year's squad not lost Rashee Rice or had someone to plug in place of Rashee Rice, could they have gone undefeated? There were a lot of problems last year for the Kansas City Chiefs, but had they had just that one solution, could they have gone undefeated? It's a question worth asking. It is an interesting question. Now, some pre-draft rankings here from PFF. They had him as the number 8 wide receiver, the 60th prospect on the board. There are, in the first 2 rounds, 64 selections. So smack dab at that 2nd-rounder mark, saying Royals may lack difference-making NFL athleticism, but he is a strong possession receiver who can line up anywhere with plus after-the-catch ability. Difficult, really, in my opinion, to say those things about a guy who ran a 4.41 40-yard dash, that he doesn't have athleticism, that he's a strong guy, but not mention his speed. From NFL Draft Buzz, they had him ranked as the 9th wide receiver with a grade of 85.6. And from CBS, he was the number 7 overall wide receiver, number 7 receiver, number 66 overall player. They compared him to Golden Tate, saying, Golden Tate lined up everywhere and made plays both off short and long throws. Does that sound familiar to what Jalen Royals is going to be asked to do for these Kansas City Chiefs? His quicks and jukes bought him space to extend plays. Royals might not play all over the field or with as much flair and spunk as Tate, but he could certainly evolve into a versatile weapon who can have a long career with some 1,000-yard seasons, much like Tate. Now, if I'm giving you my 1,000% honest assessment, Golden Tate's probably a pretty good comparison. But I think that the best way to say what I think Jalen Royals can be in the NFL is this. He's going to be, in my opinion, one of those number 2 wide receivers that people are always trying to make into a number 1 wide receiver. I think that is exactly the guy that you're looking at when you're looking at Jalen Royals, someone who is maybe not quite a number 1, but is such a good number 2 that people are always trying to make him a number 1 wide receiver. Now, listed among his strengths, remember, what Jalen Royals, in my opinion, is going to be brought in to do is kind of be the utility man of this wide receiver core. Maybe Rashee Rice stubbed his toe in the locker room, can't go. Maybe he's suspended, can't go. Jalen Royals has the build to come in and do the Rashee Rice stuff. Maybe Hollywood Brown sneezed before the game and accidentally ruined his shorts. You know, you've been there. That's happened to you. Can't play. Well, all of a sudden, Jalen Royals has 4.42 speed. He can step on the field and run the routes that Hollywood would have run from that wide receiver 3, I believe, position. He will be able to do all of those things, and that is how the Chiefs will use him at first until they figure out what it is that he is particularly good at. Remember, it's difficult to really wrap your mind around this, I think. It's difficult for me to wrap my mind around it. Rashee Rice is entering his 3rd season. Rashee Rice will have 2025, and then he will have 2026, and then he will be a free agent, right? Seems so quick because last year was gone and maybe part of this year will be gone, but that's the 4-year rookie contract. Hollywood Brown re-signed a 1-year deal. The only player they really have wrapped up in that way is Xavier Worthy, who was a first-round pick, right? So they have a 5th-year option on him. Strengths listed by CBS for Jalen Royals, built very well with a stocky, thick upper body and chunky legs. Make of that what you will. I'm not going to say that's not what I put on what I'm looking for in my dating profile, but predominantly worked wide, over 82% of his snaps each of the past 3 years. Many believe he'll work better as a slot receiver in the league. I don't. I think he's going to be a number 2 wideout. I think that he is going to be on the line. I think that he has proven he can do that in college. Royals' smooth feet and short area quickness, both off the snap and at the break point in his routes, were his best traits and his primary means of getting open as well as adding yards after the catch. It would show up in his comebacks to the quarterback, typically in 3 steps, and in jukes to fake out or freeze defenders. A good coaching staff can maximize this skill and really turn him into a yak beast. Sure was nice having yak beasts for the Kansas City Chiefs back in the day, wasn't it? Solid leaping ability helped him land top-shelf targets. Mahomes thus far in his career has not particularly utilized that in many of his wide receivers. Tyreek Hill is the only wide receiver I remember really climbing the ladder to come down with it. He doesn't even really do that with Travis Kelce. But if he can get in the habit and throw more 50-50 balls, then it becomes a skill. Tracked the ball awesomely on deep throws. Well, Mahomes wants to get back to using that deep ball in game action. Mahomes wants to get back to opening up the offense. Was particularly great at adjusting and nabbing off target throws, often using late hands so as to not tip off defenders. This is just a really good pro skill. A lot of wide receivers learn that late or never learn it, and it will take away 1 in 20 receptions, something ridiculously small statistically, but something that actually adds up over the course of a season. Getting your hands up late so the defensive back can't get his hand in there. Succeeded on scramble drills, sometimes using subtle push-offs to buy steps and become an available target for his quarterback. Succeeded on scramble drills. What quarterback might like to scramble around and still target wide receivers downfield? I don't know. It's over my head. Consistently displayed good balance to help him bounce off defenders and stay on his feet for extra yards after the catch. Again, that's just a yak thing. I mean, not afraid of contact and would frequently run through weak tackle attempts. Yak thing. Foot injury suffered on a kickoff return in 2024 needs to be checked out, but he practiced and played in the 2025 Senior Bowl, and it's the only reported injury Royals has had. Low-key personality who's focused on getting better and hustling off the field to do it. Roller skating enthusiast. I have no idea what those last two things have to do with each other, and I have absolutely no idea what that last sentence has to do with the price of tea in China. But if that is what makes you draftable, hey buddy, go out and roller skate. Now, I do want to go into the RAS scores, but here's what I want to do. I want to sort of get on my soapbox for a moment. I've talked about how I'm not the great big fan of RAS scores that some guys are. This Jalen Royals example is exactly why. Do you see that RAS score at the top? 9.23. He has a 9.23 RAS score. That's pretty elite. He has his height, his weight, his bench, his 40-yard dash, and his splits. So it's incomplete information, but he has a 9.23. Would it surprise you that when he did those other testings, it fell to a 9.01? So how are you giving a better grade on an incomplete testing process? I will never understand that. I will never understand that. But anyway, 6 foot tall, 205 pounds. These are both acceptable range things, even if the height has a red bar next to it. 13 reps on the bench press. It's a good effort. 36-inch vertical, not the greatest, but it's a decent number. 10 foot 1 inch broad jump. Again, not the greatest, but it's decent. 4.42, I think I said 4.41 40-yard dash earlier. 4.42 40-yard dash with a 1.53 10-yard split. I have seen the 10-yard split listed as low as 1.49, so I guess it just depends on where you're going for the information. A 20-yard split of 2.56. All of those numbers score above a 9 in their scoring for the RAS. A short shuttle of 4.25, which is yellow, a 6.69 grade, and a 3-cone drill of 6.94, which is yellow with a score of 7.26. Now, are those elite numbers for the agility scores? No, they're not elite, but they're still decent numbers. So Jalen Royals, in my opinion, is being brought in to be the Swiss Army knife of the wide receiver group. Now, not the Swiss Army knife on the field in the same way that Xavier Worthy is, but a Swiss Army knife in the fact that there's going to be things in the playbook that have to be done. Xavier Worthy has not really been that guy. Xavier Worthy has been a Swiss Army knife in the way that you're calling a designed play for Xavier Worthy, like a run play, etc., and we're going to get him the ball that way. I think this year we're going to see Xavier Worthy grow from that role into being a legitimate whenever type target for Mahomes. And Mahomes proved in the Super Bowl that he will be able to develop that deep ball connection with Xavier Worthy. I think the most dangerous place for Jalen Royals on the field will be in that 15 to 20 yard downfield range. Rashee Rice has done a lot of work at the line of scrimmage. Travis Kelce's going to be over the middle of the field. You have Xavier Worthy streaking deep. Maybe you have Hollywood on the field streaking deep as well. And then you have Jalen Royals in that 15 to 20 yard range, in that 12 to 18 yard range, really. And that's where he can do some real damage because there's only so many defenders. And if Mahomes plus Worthy plus Rice are going to make the defense cover every blade of grass on the field, oftentimes it's what's in the middle that's going to get avoided or forgotten. That is all I have for this video. If you like, appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting the like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other Kansas City Chiefs fans. If you find yourself here by chance but not designing the Chiefs are the only thing I talk about on this channel, dropping multiple videos every single week. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.